So 3 weeks ago, we started this series called Unseen Headlines. And, it's as I was seeking the Lord, okay, what do we want to do as we start this year off? The title, as you could see behind me, says 2022 will be filled with so many headlines, but what are we actually seeing? The reality is, even the last week, we've seen more and more headlines as, the numbers are increasing and school got canceled and these different things. And a lot of it, even for my family, it's like, man, sometimes we sit in fear of like, God, what are you doing? What's next? How do we get through this? And what's the right way? And as we started this, I was asking the Lord, what do we do? And he brought this up of, David, there's going to be so many headlines that we see this year, but what are we focused on? What's the focus? Are we seeing what he has to say, or are we going to try to see what the world wants to declare over us or what the enemy wants to say? And so as we started this, we looked at this text in Colossians, which we'll read here in just a second. And the whole point of it is to seek first the kingdom of God, seek those things which are above, and set our mind on things above. When we change our perspective and we actually do that shift, it's amazing what happens in our own life. I was talking to someone else this morning, how they were just like talking about, man, at work, all these people try to talk to me about these different things and everything that they see online and all the stuff. I'm like, man, it's crazy how people are so worried. Just so much of everything, not just, what we're seeing currently, but just all over the world, and it's like, if we would just change our perspective and go, Lord, you're in control, life would look a little bit different. But that's when we absolutely give everything over to him. Let me ask you a question. When times are hard, who's the first person you think about? Be honest this morning. Who's the first person you think about when times are tough? Can we be honest? Ourselves. Who's with me? You would be honest this morning? It's the truth. It's human nature. We get it. It's okay, right? When times get tough, we most likely think about ourselves. When it's difficult, when the headlines say the things that are filled with fear or whatever it is that's going on, who do we think about? As I mentioned, it's human nature. We all saw it this year, or the last couple of years, and be super honest, when the world shut down for the first time, all we thought about was, I'm going to say this if that's okay, is our own butts. Am I allowed to say that in church? Okay. All right. We're cutting that from the tape, all right? The reason is, and I mean this literally, toilet paper was absolutely gone. You with me? We saw it happen. It's the truth. It is what it is. That's all we thought about was our own toilet paper needs. We saw it. But really, the fact of the matter is it's absolutely understandable because many of us have families. Many of us have people to take care of. But are we so focused on ourselves that we're missing others? Are we so focused on ourselves that we're missing the point, the things that are around us, what God's trying to teach us? Are we focused on the headlines in front of us, or are we focused on the unseen ones that we need to be searching for? It's one thing when we're going through something as a unit or as a family, and we can look in one direction and just declare, okay, that's it, that's what's happening, rather than saying, no, the Lord is actually doing something else. The Lord is using this to grow us, and there's other headlines we need to be searching for, and that's what Jesus is promising us and declaring over our life. And I'm telling you, church, if we do this, no matter what happens, if we do this, if we stay focused on Jesus, we're going to be able to get through. Are you with me, church? We're going to be able to get through. So what are we supposed to be thinking about, and really why? In Colossians chapter 3, as I just mentioned, it says this. Chapter 3, verse 1, if then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. We set our mind on things above, not on things of the earth. For you died and your life is hidden with Christ in God. So what's it saying? Seek those above, those things above. We have been changed. That's what it's saying out of the gate. If you were raised with Christ, so when you gave your life to Jesus, you've been raised with Christ. There's been a dramatic change. And it says, seek those things now which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. So it's a mentality change. It's a perspective change. It's saying, no, we don't focus on these things, all the chaos, all those things that are happening, but rather we focus on Jesus and what he's declaring and the promises that he's given us in his word. It's something that needs to happen in every single one of us. So we're changed. And that way, when this happens, we seek him. When we finally realize we need Jesus, everything absolutely changes. And then he goes on to say, you died, meaning it's not about you anymore. It's about Jesus. It's all about Jesus, and it changes everything, just like we sang a little bit ago, that Jesus really changes everything. Can I ask you a question this morning again? Do you believe that, church? When I say that Jesus changes everything, is that something that's true in your life? Do you believe that? I love it. Yes? Raise your hand. Does Jesus change everything? All right, there it is. He truly does. He changes everything. And when we give our life over to him, it is a radical, radical change. When we look at this, though, if Jesus truly changes everything, and we look to him and we want to be more like him, what was Jesus about? What was Jesus about? Here's straight to the point. He was about others. He was about people. He was about those that absolutely needed hope. He was about those that were honestly destined to fail. And he would be with those that everyone else rejected. And there was a reason for that. But here's what happens. In our world today, I see this all the time. The world gives us this headline. It says, gain greatness, it's all about you. Who's ever like, you go through life, that's something you know that you see. Gain greatness, it's all about you. It's something the world constantly tells us. It's all about you. It's all about your greatness, what you can do. Here's the unseen headline. Gain humility. It's all about Jesus. Or another one. Gain humility. There is greatness in serving. See the difference there? The contrast? What the world declares in your life, gain greatness, it's all about you. And Jesus is saying, no, gain humility. There is greatness in serving others. You see, when we are in a place of humility, and we understand that what Jesus did for us, he's not only doing for us, but now he's saying, everything that I've given you, mercy, grace, peace, all of those things that I've handed you, I want you now to go out into the world and declare who I am, what I've done, and do the exact same thing I did for you for others. But sometimes it's really easy to receive grace and not so easy to give it. Very easy to receive mercy, not so easy to give it. Very easy to say, I want all the love, but not so easy to give it. And so there's a major contrast between the two of what the world declares as a headline of it's all about you, and what Jesus says is, no. There's greatness in actually serving. And being a servant, and loving others, and being there for them. If you don't mind opening your Bibles to Mark chapter 10, we're going to take a look at two texts here that truly declare this. In Mark chapter 10, starting in verse 35, it says this, Then James and John, the son of Zebedee, came to him saying this, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. Who has ever said that to Jesus? I mean, it's amazing that it's in here because the truth of the matter is it's probably often that we do in our own prayer time. Right? They're saying, look, teacher, we want you to do whatever we ask. And this is amazing that he responds. So Jesus says this, what do you want me to do for you? What would you like me to do for you? Then they said to him, grant us that we may sit one on your right hand and the other on your left in your glory. But let's be honest here. Is it really for his glory or their glory? But Jesus said to them, you do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink from the cup that I drink and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They said to him, we're able. And Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink the cup that I drink, and with the baptism I am baptized with, you will be baptized. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be greatly displeased with James and John. But this is what Jesus does. It's a moment here. Jesus called them to himself, and he said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles, they lord it over them, and their great ones exercise that authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever of you desires to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. You know, it's interesting when we find ourselves in these times that we're seeing today. Because as I mentioned before, when times get tough, who do we think about? And oftentimes it is ourselves. You know, what do I need to do? What can I do to get through this, or whatever it is? And again, you have families, so there is a part of that. Yeah, we got to think about those that are loved ones, those that we need to take care of. But is it that we're hoarding everything for ourselves, or are we actually trying to take care of the community around us and those around us? But here's the first thing. When you read this and it says, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." Can I just be super honest? Jesus isn't our personal genie. It's not a lamp that we rub and all of a sudden it's like, all right, Lord, what are you going to give me today? That's not the way this works. He won't grant you wishes like this one. And I hope that you hear my heart when I'm saying this, that we need to understand we don't want to pray like this either, because oftentimes we can. It's like we want God to do these things. And yes, we definitely need to ask, Lord, bless this or be a part of this. But there's definitely a heart behind it, right? And having the right heart, and when we're asking the Lord to do things in our life. But they straight up, it's like he's a genie to them. We want you to do for us whatever we ask. And what's amazing about this is after this talk he has, he brings them in close. And it's like this teaching moment he has with them. I love this about Jesus, because we all need this. All of us. Way more than just once. We need this moment with Jesus. I'll ask you this. Anyone ever say something very dumb in public? Every day. This is that moment for them. We're able to do exactly what you're going to do. Trust me, we got this. And as he starts to have a conversation, he brings them to himself. And in that moment, I just see Jesus just like, that smile and that smirk. It's like he wraps his arms around them. He's like, let's have a talk. Right? It's like that moment. It's a teaching moment. It's like, you think this, but let me give you something real quick. And I know we've all been there, where we say something out loud, in front of somebody or whatever the situation is, and someone comes alongside of us and they pat us on the back and let's go have a conversation. Right? Anyone been there? You say something, you blurt out. Peter's well known for it in the Bible. Says all kinds of crazy things. He has those moments often, but Jesus always loves him. But it says that he brings him to himself and he has a conversation with him. Like I said, it's like Jesus putting his arms around him and letting him know, let's talk about this one. It shows his heart for people. He's kind. He's merciful. He's gracious. He's loving. For me, I've said a lot of dumb things in my own life. And I'm very, very thankful that God is gracious, merciful, and loving. Anyone with me? Because the reality is, we all know it's going to happen again next week. Because that's just who we are. But do you realize that those who are considered rulers, that they lord it over you? Look at what he's saying here. He brings them in. And he's giving them that teaching moment. He says, you're saying for your glory, which they're talking about him. But the reality is they want to sit at the right and left hand of him for their glory. They want to go, look at us. Look what we did. We're able to do this. We want greatness. And I said in the very beginning, that's what the world declares. Greatness. You need to be great. You need to have everything. Make more money. Do this more. Have this. It's constant. Have you ever realized, this is crazy to me because I'm in my own personal life of work, I'm in marketing. But as you drive down the 15, you see how many billboards on the left and right side of the freeway? Who's ever really taken a look and counted? Like everywhere you drive this direction, go left, go right. You know how many signs are everywhere floating in the sky? It's constant push. We were driving by, a certain area, and I was asking my wife, what's going there? And I don't know what's happening here. And she starts to tell me, well, this is going to go there. This is going to go there. I'm just like, this is crazy. What's happening in our state and just our area, right? It's booming. It's amazing in some aspects, but it's like, do we all really need all of this? But the reality is that's just the constant push of the world. And Jesus brings them in close. And he says, you know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles, what do they do with that? They lord it over them. What are they focused on? Their own greatness. What are they focused on? Them being lords. Them being kings. And he goes in and says, and their great ones exercise authority over them. What does it mean? They use that power. They exercise that power over their people. Sadly, you see that in our world today, even with pastors. Where even people in this position lord it over their people. And it's sad. Because he goes on to say something that is just full of humility. That the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. I don't know about you, that's the heart I want. And as hard as it is, I ask the Lord daily, Lord, show me, how do I serve more? How do I do what you did? How do I serve with the right heart? How do I not try to lord anything over anyone? He tells them that they treat them as peasants, as slaves, as servants. They exercise that authority over them. And then he says, instead of those who act this way, they actually shall be your servant. Whoever wants to be at the top, claim it all, be number one, shall be a slave for all. That's what he's saying. And then Jesus again says, I came to serve, not be served. He's talking about servant leadership here. In our own families, many of us are, as dads, as fathers, we be considered a leader of the home, just biblically as we try to raise our family in the right way and we lead well. But the truth is, oftentimes we have to remind ourselves that word leader, there's a word in front of it, and that's servant. That we're called to serve our wives. We're called to serve our kids. We're called to be a servant for all, to love them, to show them how Jesus loved and served. It's interesting when we started having kids that I noticed that they literally are like sponges. They do every single thing that we do, and they learn from us. And it's interesting because even those little tiny words, like shut up or stupid or any of those things, we have those conversations with our kids and say, don't say these words. Anyone ever had that conversation with their young kids? Don't say these words, right? Don't say those things. And it's funny when you finally have that conversation, especially with our little ones, and then they hear us in the car say that word, and then they say, huh? Dad, you're saying a bad word. Don't say that. And you're corrected by your children. How do you feel? Feel pretty good, huh? No, you don't. You don't feel good, but the reality is you're trying to train them and teach them, right? But it also shows that we do make mistakes, and it's amazing when a child does come to you and say, hey, you said something. Yes, it's a teaching moment, but it's also, wow, maybe I am doing an okay job here raising my kids, because it's hard and difficult. Who would be honest this morning and say it is really hard to raise kids? We're not alone. Thank you, Jesus. Those teaching moments are absolutely beautiful, and we all need them. Here's what I want to show you really quick. When we talk about leadership, when we talk about servanthood, when we talk about, I'm trying to find something here. Don't mind me. When we talk about the things that pertain to leadership or pertain to greatness, it's totally the opposite of what we think. I'm trying to find the ladder that was back here, but it's now gone. I'm going to have Jared find it for me. But the reality is, when we talk about the leadership, when we talk about greatness, the world declares one thing, as we've been talking about all morning. The world declares one thing of, it's all about you, you need to be great. And as we see Jesus here having a teaching moment with these guys, they're hearing what the world has to say. But on the other end, Jesus is saying to them, no, it's actually the opposite. You're called to serve people. You're called to be filled with humility. You're supposed to walk in humility. You're called to be a servant for those around you. And that shows your love, your grace, your mercy for them. That despite what's happening, or despite whatever the world is declaring in your life, or declaring on the news, or whatever's out there, you're called to be here sitting with Jesus and learning to serve. How many of you, that's something that's hard? I'm putting both my hands up. It is hard to do. It's very hard to do. It's not an easy thing to constantly be in the mindset of, I'm here to serve, I'm here to serve, I'm here to serve. But that's why we need Jesus, right? Thank you so much, Jared. Can we give Jared a hand? Your wife is your biggest fan back there, man. It's awesome. So here's the thing. When we talk about this, right, it's, David, you need to have greatness. It's all about you. And the minute we believe that, we start to take a step. And then the world comes in even more. Well, again, it's all about you. We need to be greater and greater and greater. And then we take another step. And then the world continues to push that mentality on our minds, pushes more and more. And then what do? We take another step. And it can continue to go on and continue to go on. But the reality is if you turn around for 1 second and you take a look, what? You might have all of these things and you might feel great standing up here above everyone else. But who are you leaving behind? What Jesus does is he says, get off the ladder and serve those around you. Get off the ladder, walk in humility. Get off the ladder, serve your community. We could still be taking care of our families and doing what we need to, and still have the same mindset and the goal of serving and loving the people around us. But what I want to tell you is this, when everything hits the fan sometimes, or when chaos hits, again, the mindset is, it's all about me. We have to have the right perspective to go, no, Lord, you're going to provide what I need. You're going to always be there for me. But I need to be focused on you. Who do you want me to serve? How can I get involved? How can I bless my community? How can I serve my neighbors? How can I be there for those that are suffering? How can I help those that are in need? That's what we're called to do. As this text continues on, we get to meet someone. His name is Barnabas. In verse 46, just as Jesus is done talking in this moment, he says to them again, I didn't come to be served, but to serve. And he gave his life a ransom for many. It goes on in verse 46 and says this, now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus and the son of Timaeus sat by the roadside begging. And when they heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. I love this next text. So Jesus stood still. There's not many times we could read that in the Bible. Jesus stood still. And he commanded him to be called. Then they called the blind man, saying to him this, be of good cheer, rise, he is calling for you. And throwing aside his garment, he rose and he came to Jesus. And so Jesus answered him and said, listen to this same thing, what do you want me to do for you? It's a different contrast here. So the blind man said to him, Rabboni, that I may receive my sight. Then Jesus said to him, go your way, your faith has made you well. and immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road. It's amazing because right before this, James and John asked the same exact question. And the point was, they were saying, yeah, we want to be on the right, left-hand side of you for your glory, God. But the reality is, it's for them. And he goes on to say, guys, you're called to serve. And then as they're walking, and Jesus hears this man who's blind just cry out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus stands still. He hears him. What's amazing about this is as they say to him, be of good cheer, rise, he is calling for you. And not even two texts before that, they're saying, be quiet. Don't yell for him. He does it again. And I'm assuming those same people now are like, be of good cheer, rise. He's calling for you. This next part, we can look over, we can just read it and move on. But the reality is there's so much here. It says in verse 50, and throwing aside his garment, he rose and came to Jesus. The blind man left everything he knew right there. He threw his garment aside, the one thing he knows, the one thing that probably gives him comfort, the one thing that he's used to. He throws it all aside and he comes to Jesus. You see how epic this moment truly is? He's blind. He can't see. He throws it aside and he comes to him. Some of us need to do the same exact thing. The thing that's maybe comfortable, the thing that maybe we hold on to, the thing that is so, I need this. Jesus is saying this morning, throw it aside and come to me. There's two headlines we see here. One is, for this man, be quiet, he doesn't hear you. As they say in verse 47 or 48, many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more. One headline again, be quiet. He doesn't hear you. He doesn't want to. And the other headline says this, sir, go your way. Your faith has made you well. Instead of being quiet, he cried even more. Instead of listening to what the world had to say, he looked for Jesus. He could have easily said, yeah, I'll be quiet. I don't want to bug him. But instead, he cried out for mercy even more. He saw through that headline to the unseen one, which is Jesus. And he said, no, I know he can hear me. And I need his mercy today. And because he wasn't willing to hear what the world had to say and only focus on Jesus, Jesus says to him, what do you want me to do for you? And he saw the heart of this man. He wasn't saying, make me great. He was saying, Rabboni, I just need some mercy and I want to see. And in this moment, Jesus says, go your way. Your faith has made you well. What a beautiful picture of who God is. But the last part here of that verse in 52, after he says, you have been made well with a miraculous healing, it says, and immediately he received his sight. And what did he do with it? He followed Jesus. He didn't go, I now have sight. Let me go do whatever I want to do. I can now see. Let me go run over here and declare of who I am. He received his sight and he ran after Jesus. He followed him. it tells us something about humility. But this is the gracious invitation from Jesus that we should get up, that we should get moving, that we should leave whatever we need behind as he left his blanket, left his coat around him, and that we would run to Jesus. What we see here is that the guilty, the empty, the tempted, the hungry, the naked, he says to be of good comfort. This is what he's declaring. He calls those to be pardoned that are guilty. He calls those that are empty to be full. He calls those that are tempted to be secure in him. He calls those that are hungry to be filled. He calls those that are naked to be clothed. To have everything we need and the only things that are found in him. When we look at these two contrasts and we see the heart of both of these different people, the question I raise again is, which headline are we reading? Are we hearing the world say, be quiet? Or are we saying, no, I have faith and I want to be made well? Are we allowing just distraction to take a hold of us and fear to step in? Or are we saying, no, Lord, I want to have faith and trust in you? I don't know what your week is going to look like this week. I have no idea what's going to happen right after service. But I can tell you this. If you cling to him, if you have faith in him, if you give it all to him, it will be okay. But it's only in him that we can have that freedom. It's only in him that we can truly be able to move forward and be made well. Are we going to say this week, it's all about me? Or are we willing to lay everything down and aside to focus on Jesus and serve those around us? After this, we don't know what happens in his life, but we do know this. He was made well because of his faith, because of his heart willingness and able to say, Lord, I need your mercy. I need you. I need everything that's about you. And we know that he immediately had sight and he followed Jesus on the road. It means he did what Jesus asked him to do. Follow me. Let's go change others' lives. Let's go bring hope to the hopeless. Let's go do other miracles. And let's bring this same message to a world that desperately needs it.